Okay, hello everybody. In today's video I'm going to be continuing on from the previous videos, exploring the more darker sides of the human mind in terms of the kind of unspoken feelings and thoughts that we have about ourselves, about life overall, and what it's the difficulties of living in your head basically, and the limitations that are often placed on us, or we feel pressured to limit ourselves in many ways because of the fear of the repercussions, of the consequences of sharing those hidden, darker areas of our mind, at least in a kind of public setting or with strangers, whether you share those parts of your mind with your closest, most trustworthy, loyal friends or family members is a different matter, but for the most part, most people probably aren't discussing these kind of things to any great length, probably most of the time, I would imagine. So this is going to be the very last video in this kind of it was kind of a series of videos, really. Yes, they have different titles, but they're essentially more or less along similar lines, and that's why I've given them put in brackets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in this video I'll be discussing 50 dark realities about life, about nature and humanity. Just as a disclaimer, I didn't get all of these ideas by myself. I did use ChatGPT to get, I spent quite a bit of time before I started this series trying to work out kind of what I would like to talk about roughly, and so I spent quite a while going through ChatGPT and trying to come to a collection of areas that I would like to talk about. So it's not entirely my own work, but I did spend some time going through each of these areas afterwards and kind of working out whether I wanted to discuss them or not, because not all of them are that interesting. So I was kind of like, if you've watched any of the other videos, I've touched upon most of them, but some of them I won't have touched upon as much as other ones. So it's essentially kind of the same thing will apply here. I've seen the vast majority of them, but as to how thorough I'm kind of gonna comment on them, give my own view, analyze these areas. I don't know until we go through them. I haven't rehearsed this. I haven't. There's no script going on or anything. It's just a case I've just got a list of. It probably won't show on because it's not flipped the right way, but I've got it in a Word document, and yeah. So I hope you enjoy this. What's going to be quite an interesting finale to a series that I wanted to cover for a while on my channel, and maybe in the future, maybe later on this year, I might sort of delve into some of it, of a kind of interesting areas of discussion or debate or controversy. So, but anyway, we'll see how things go as the year progresses. But just before I start here, after this video, I'll be taking a kind of a bit of a short break from YouTube for maybe just a few weeks, I think, because I'm working on something else, and that'll be getting uploaded onto YouTube probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks. I want to say, I don't know exactly, but I'm guessing it's probably going to be 2 weeks from this video. Yeah, I hope you enjoy those. I'm not going to say any more about it, but I think they're going to be very interesting, and yeah, I hope you like that content. Let's call it. Won't reveal anything, but yeah, it's not content in the. Anyway, look, I'm waffling on here, but anyway. So yeah, there's going to be some interesting stuff coming up on the channel over the next couple of weeks. Okay, so why don't we just get into it, shall we? So we're going to start off with life and existence. And it says here, you will die and most people will forget you within a few generations. I would say for the whoever survives you, if there's any of your immediate family left or any friends that are still alive when you die, clearly some of those people will remember you and will talk about you for, intermittently, probably for the rest of their lives, or at the very least will think about you. And so for me, it doesn't, I don't lose sleep at night being fully aware that I'm on borrowed time, like we all are. But of course it does fill you with a little bit of dread sometimes when you consider that you are either going to die in your sleep, or you're going to develop some illness, or you're going to die of old age, or you might be involved in some accident or maybe some surgery at some point that goes haywire, and you die that way. So no matter whatever your thoughts are on, whatever your religious leanings are, or your thoughts on philosophy, and whether you have any kind of Buddhist-like beliefs, it really doesn't matter. You are going to perish at some stage, and that's just it's a sad reality, but it's also a reality that hopefully it gives you reasons to get up in the morning. It gives you motivation to want to live and to try and make the best out of your life within whatever time span you've got. It's hard to. I was just thinking about my uncle Stephen earlier, my father's brother. Passed away not that long ago, really, and it's hard to believe it sometimes. It's hard to really accept that person that you used to speak to on the phone was just as alive, just as real as I am in this video. Just as real as the people that you talk to on a daily basis or weekly basis, or whatever it is, with your friends, your family, people at work, and it's just almost incomprehensible. It's hard to really truly believe that person that meant so much to you in so many ways, that you had such a deep bond with as a family member is gone. You know, they're gone. You know, that they're, and it's just such a hard thing to get your head to. It's hard to. It's just, I don't know what else to add to that really. It's just you just sometimes you just can't believe it, you know, and it hurts you. It's you yearn for, you know, just another conversation with that person, you know, another opportunity to make them laugh, you know, an opportunity to tell them what you're doing, and you know, ask them. You know, sometimes it's so easy to take life for granted, and you know, it's only when people go that you realise how special, how precious those things are. And I suppose in a way my kind of YouTube channel is a kind of I suppose maybe in a way a kind of a legacy of some sort in a weird way maybe. You know, none of us know when our time's up and under what circumstances, unless you've been diagnosed with a terminal illness, or you've reached quite an old age or something like that, then you know, obviously it's like, or you going in for some really potentially fatal, you know, surgery, things go wrong, or whatever it might be. So, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really bother me whether people, if people don't say anything about me, you know, if people don't think about me anymore when I'm dead, you know, it's like, it doesn't, why does it matter to me really? It's like, you know, it's like, of course it would be nice if people did that. You know, who doesn't want people to say, to think highly of them, to think positive things, to have good memories of someone. But you know, it's not something that, you know, I don't crave that really. It's like I'm not setting out with my channel here to kind of, you know, leave some kind of imprint of myself necessarily. I mean, it's like I'm just doing it because I want to do it, and I'm just keeping my videos up because I quite like watching them from time to time, in a weirdly egotistical maybe sort of way. It's like, it's interesting to look back on yourself and to learn from your younger self, and to see your journey kind of thing, and how things have changed with yourself. And so I guess really it's more for me than it is anything else. And if anybody comes across the channel and finds something interesting in it, or finds some wisdom there, or something that they connect with, then that's great. But at the end of the day, you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter if people remember me, apart from my family, my brothers, my sister. You know, that's it really. Everybody else, you know, doesn't. I'm not really interested actually. You know, and if people can't make the effort while they're alive to remember you, then I'd rather they just didn't bother in my death. Okay, so the second one here is, the world doesn't owe you anything, no matter how hard you try or how good you are. Yeah, it's true that you know, there's no inherent, you know, obligation for nature, for the laws of physics, for the universe to provide you with things that you want or you need in life. You know, that's something that's purely human motivationally driven aspects of the human psyche, isn't it? Really, we want things, whether it's financial success, success in our career, success in our job, success in education, in relationships, friendships, even. Setting ourselves goals, but ultimately those things come at a cost, and that cost is usually sacrifice and usually discomfort and usually some level of change within yourself that you might not necessarily want, but you have to. A lot of the time, you have to become somebody else almost to kind of reach those things a lot of the time in life. So. And even if it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter. Just give me a moment. Sorry about that. My dogs get very hyper alert anytime there's anybody near the house, and we have some people opposite the house here that come in and out of the house quite regularly. So my dog was my Japanese Spitz Hem. She's such a great dog. I love Hem. She's really special. She really is. But she sometimes is a little bit sensitive. So, it doesn't really matter how much money you have. It's not about money, it's more about obviously money matters in this world. Without it, you can't really do anything. But I think ultimately it's not really about that. It's often about people giving you the right opportunities. Really, it's people giving you a chance. It's having luck sometimes in life, being in the right place at the right time. Sometimes it is down to nepotism and sometimes it's down to social class. Actually, yes, education matters and what you can bring to the table, but a lot of the time it's often how you look, it's how you sound, it's whether people think that you're one of them or not, whether people see you as a team player or an individual, that kind of thing. And I'm not denying that hard work is important, and that perseverance, resilience, motivation, belief, confidence. I'm not saying these things don't matter, of course they do, but it's not just that. There's a combination of things that have to go right. I think there's a lot of things that have to go right along the way for you to get success and maintain that level of success, and a lot of it's often down to whether you can tolerate. It's often down to tolerance. I think it's what can you tolerate, what do you want to tolerate, what do you think is worth tolerating, what do you think is worth putting up with. And it's not always about money. Sometimes it's just about what you get out of it, whether it's holidays, whether it's I don't know, a career progression maybe. Maybe you can become a manager one day, or a boss or something, or you can change your life in some way. You can make your life better. So it's not always about purely about dedication or passion. You know, so the world, while the world doesn't owe you anything, you know, you can't really truly reach success, I'd say, for the vast majority of people without a certain level of chance, a certain level of luck and timing, really. That's and knowing how to maneuver in around people, or using, in a way, sort of using people to get to that success that you want. So it's, you know, whether you want to also add like fate and karma to those kind of things, you know, I don't know how I feel about those things these days, as I'm, you know, heading towards my mid-years, slowly but surely. But, you know, maybe there is some other elements to it. It's not, I don't think it is just about hard work, you know. It's, you've got to have intellect. You've got to be smart. You know, and you know, there's so many people that are smart and have certain traits that would make them, you know, good candidates for success, but for whatever reason they don't make it. You know, there's too much competition. There's too many. You know, there's so much sleaziness going on out there and among people when it comes to competing for money and power and, you know, reaching the next levels in society, kind of thing. So it's, I don't think there's an easy answer to that, really. I think it's really a multifaceted area. You know, it's like, yes, you can get the right grades and go to college, university, but that doesn't guarantee you success in life. You know, it might mean that, and it depends what your definition of success is as well. So yeah, I think that's quite a complex area that I don't think there's any real simple answer to it. Okay, the third one is, no matter how much you love someone, they can still leave you without looking back. I think actually a lot of the time you can actually love people too much, and that essentially forces a sense of pressure and obligation from people, and I think over time people become trapped by that. So I just think that it's not. I don't think actually, you know, this is something I've thought about quite a lot over the past few years. I don't think love is enough sometimes. I don't think it is enough to love someone. You know, it's like that can't be. As much as I hate to say it, you know, and I'm someone that does try to love as best as I can. It's not enough. You've got to have you've got to be able to bring other things to the table when it comes. It's not just about romantic. The romantic side of love. It also relates to friendships. You know, you can be too much for some people. You can be too much of an open book. You can be too shut off from people, and what I found is that people will find excuses when it's convenient for them because of what they're going through, and they're looking for an easy way out of a situation in life, and so they'll pull it on you when you least expect it, but they've probably been thinking about it and planning a certain move for, in some people's cases, years, maybe even a decade or so. It really just depends how bad things have been, and I think everybody reaches a point eventually in life where they stop. They just feel that they can't go on living like that anymore. They feel like they just can't tolerate certain situations and certain people anymore. They've just reached a wall, and that's it. That's there's nothing beyond that. They just can't go on. And I think at that point, people. I mean, often changes. The breakdown of relationships, friendships. I'd say maybe 60 to 70% of the time. It's usually a slow rot. It's a slow burn process. The rest of them can be just over. But things can happen quickly, and people can shut people off very quickly. And you might think, oh, that's kind of random. Just stop talking. But it's often, people aren't always very honest with you. Even and actually a lot of the time, the most closest to you can be the most dishonest, the most manipulative, the most deceiving a lot of the time, because they don't want to hurt you, because they're supposed to love you, and they feel because there's a lot of the time there is tensions with the people that are the closest to you. That those are the most impassioned connections you'll ever have with people. But a lot of the time there's often stuff going on beneath the surface in those connections, and that stuff can boil over and can lead to some very serious explosive arguments at times. I've had quite serious arguments with my brothers in the past, certainly my parents, old friends from in the past from time to time, and certainly in relationships. So I think that people will snap and leave when one it's convenient to leave, and two, when there's no longer any reason to stay. Essentially, that's why people. It's like, for example, with like children, they might leave when the children are at a certain age, or maybe they've been putting a plan in place and they've got certain things that they're ducks in a row kind of thing, and now there's a path forward. So often people will be planning those kind of things for months or years, and then at a certain point those people just leave, and it might all seem like it's all a bit dramatic and random, but a lot of the time it's not. It's not at all. It says here people change sometimes in ways that make them strangers to those they once cherished. There's people I used to know at school that I thought I would be friends with 20, 30 years down the line, and here we are, and I don't speak to any of them anymore, because some of them kind of basically stabbed me in the back, was talking smack about me basically, and I found out, and they were just dishonest, lying, two-faced, backstabbing twats, quite frankly, and I don't want anything to do with them ever again. There's people on Facebook Messenger that I blocked because they were just playing games, and I sussed them out and they didn't like it, and they couldn't be honest with me, they couldn't be transparent enough to admit that they didn't want to talk to me, but they just didn't want to say it. It was like, well, then why don't you just block me then? Just block me, just unfriend me. If you don't want to hear from me, then just why don't you just say that? Just have the decency, pay me the respect to just be honest about that, and be on your way. I couldn't give a fuck. If you don't want to talk to me ever again, fine, good for you. I really couldn't give a shit. It doesn't bother me, honestly. It's like, if you want to talk to me, great, and if you don't, then fuck off then. Bye, see ya. Close the fucking door on your way out. And that's the same with relationships. It's like when my last relationship broke down. It's like, I'm glad it broke down. It'd been broken for months. It became toxic. It became unhealthy, and I was glad to get out of it. And I don't miss her, actually. I don't really miss her that much at all these days. I'm glad she's moved on, and I've moved on, and if this situation ever comes to an end, which it probably will at some stage in the near future, I'll be glad to move on from this as well in certain ways, because it's nothing's ever completely ideal. We don't live in the world it's not always a nice place, and you see that often in relationships, in the people that they're supposed to have you back. So it is what it is. Just a moment. There's always something going on. We've got this crazy woman living next door to us. She's batshit crazy. She's moved. She brought some food around, and she's moved it about 4 times already. And then she just came inside the gated area where we park our car, and well, my wife parks her car, and she just took it back out in the house. Like, what the fuck are you doing? She's fucking crazy. So anyway. I just think love's overrated. I think actually love is not always. I sometimes think you're better off without it actually, as much as you can, because it comes with too much pain in the end. You know, it's nice apart from your family. You know, it's like have love for your family, have love for your pets as best as you can. But even then, people in your own family can turn against you and can. Sometimes they can be the worst people. So, you know, heartbreak is in its various guises is basically a part of life in one way or another. You know, it's the gradual breakdown of a marriage relationship, or it's the gradual deterioration of friendships because of personality differences at a certain point in life, going in different directions. You know, whether it's the heartbreak of losing a pet, losing a family member. You know, but I think just ultimately the best thing I can say about this one is that I just think that I just think you can't trust people. And I really do mean that. I mean pretty much everyone. You can't trust anyone really. Because I just think that the very core of who we are doesn't a lot of the time call for that. It's often about life is a lot of the time about finding a way of manoeuvring yourself for your own deeply selfish wants and needs in life. That's essentially what it comes down to. And when people no longer serve you in some capacity or other, then people don't want you in their lives anymore. They're not interested, and they move on for people to replace you, to fill that void, to fill that role that you were playing, that they thought that you were too stupid to realise. Number 4 is happiness is temporary and suffering is inevitable. You know, I think happiness a lot of the time is not so much. It's not so much. I don't think happiness is really a true state necessarily. I think it's more of. I think I think it's a happiness. If to me, happiness is a sense of at this point in my life, really, happiness is essentially a sense of some degree of satisfaction, fulfillment out of something in life. It's a phase where you feel, there are different types of whatever you want to label it as, whether you want to call it happiness or not is up to you. But I think it's essentially just it's relief from things in a way. It's a sense of relief. It's a sense of having a break from the stresses and obligations and sort of setting goals for yourself, setting targets for yourself. I think it's more about, and I think that a lot of people think of happiness as being this kind of almost euphoric type of mental state, and I don't think that really is true happiness. I mean, there's a happiness to a 5-year-old is very different to that of a 15-year-old, and happiness to a 15-year-old is very different to that of a 30-year-old, and so on. So I think it's quite a subjective area. This, I don't know what it changes. I think that what you feel is happiness changes as you get older. All I know is that when I'm not doing anything really with my life on a daily basis, that is just kind of going through the motions, not really kind of having anything to work on, then I start to find myself getting depressed because I feel like I'm wasting time. And so I always, maybe like every few weeks I'll try and set myself a goal. That's kind of partly why I wanted to do this channel in a way, because it gave me something to do. It gave me an opportunity to fully express myself. Well, maybe not fully, that might not be true, but mostly. And it's a platform in which I can explore these kind of things. You can't really talk about a lot of these kind of things with the vast majority of people, and even if you can, they're going to get bored after 5 minutes. So, I just prefer not to, kind of don't bother really. Apart from my brother Christopher, he can kind of talk to me about anything really. But I mean, apart from him, I don't really discuss any kind of really deep things with most people. So I don't think we are wired to be happy. I think we're wired to I think we're wired to accomplish things. I think that might be the best thing that I can say, I can think of at the moment. I think that we're wired to do things, that's because we're creative, we're curious, we have a lot of curiosity, so, that's why we've built the things we've built, we've invented so many things, that's why we know so much, because we just have a naturally curious mind, and I guess that might be born out of survival, that's a primitive survival instinct kind of thing. It's like we're curious to know what other tribes are doing, we're curious to know what's lurking around the corner, we're curious to know what the threats are. So I suppose it's probably something along those lines. But I think a state of, let's call it peace, or a state of, just feeling relaxed, feeling calm within yourself and not worrying about things, if that's what happiness means, then then yeah, that doesn't happen all the time. You know, it's. I think life, a lot of life is. It's fucking hard work. It's really hard work, and it's there's a lot of a great deal of suffering involved in this life, and that makes life. When we have these moments where we're not feeling that, you know, I think more or less happiness is basically. It's just a space without what I've just said. You know, it's a space without without feeling all that pressure and all the demands and obligations and everything all the time. So it's like, yes, of course, it is the. You know, there is that dopamine element of it. You know, it's like there's brain chemistry going on, but I think a lot of the time it's a case of. To me, happiness is about like reaching something. It's about feeling like you've done something with your days. You've achieved something. You've made something of your life in some way. You know, you're working on something. You know, you're adding something to the world in some capacity. That's to me what happiness is. Or it's just feeling at ease with yourself temporarily. It's not worrying about things all the time. Constantly in this never-ending state of mental drama all the time. Number 5, you can do everything right and still fail, sometimes for no reason at all. Well, I don't know about no reason at all. I would say there's always something that's, you know, it's not some supernatural phenomenon necessarily. It's just I think that there's, you know, you can. There's always reasons why things happen. It's not just random. You know, it might not always be logical. You know, things might not always be logical, but there's always some reason behind something. You know, and this kind of relates back to. Number 2 really, because just because you've got, sometimes you can have too much in life. I think sometimes you can be too much, and that can cause you that can lead to a lot of resentment, a lot of toxic competition with people. You know, it's not enough to just compete and whoever's the best wins. It's, you know, it's about people crushing you, trying to crush your dreams, crush your aspirations, crush your optimism, your motivation, because you know maybe they don't have as much money as you, or they don't have as much intellect as you do. You know, maybe that, and it's. But often people don't realise what's involved in getting success, and a lot of the time actually the things that you've got to do often to get there, it's not for everybody. Not everyone's capable of it. I don't think it's so much it's necessarily always about money and you know, having certain letters after your name kind of thing. I think it's down to I think it's just kind of built into you at a certain point. You either have it or you don't. I don't think it's always about. It's not always a logical path, you know. It's like you can have success very early on, and some people get success a bit later in life, you know. Some people never really get any real success. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure it's a highly, very, very complex. I'm sure there's a lot of complex reasons behind that. I don't think it's just that, oh well, he didn't try hard enough, he didn't. I think you've got to. It's just a game, isn't it? Life's a game. It's a game of competition. You know, it's a game to a race to the top, or is it a race to the bottom? You decide. You know, when you think about like the kind of like the rat race type thing, and capitalism overall, it's built on purely really built on, in terms of like success at least, not so much working itself, but getting success in a capitalist system is built upon meritocracy. And no, I don't think everyone's cut out for it. I just don't think that everyone's got it in them to that's why there are only a small number of really truly hyper successful people in this world, and that's why it's 1 or 2% of the whole population, I'm guessing, something like that, maybe less. So I don't know why some people don't get success even when they're doing all the right things. I guess maybe there's just too much. There's too much competition. There's too much. So many things are oversaturated now, and I think just some people just give up. Some people just give in at a certain point when they've given something all they possibly could, and they just can't. They're just not coping anymore. They just can't anymore. They just, and I think there's just some people that just don't have, after there's a certain line at which that resilience runs out. That tolerance for the things that they were doing to get to that point. There comes a point, I think, where you realise that that's not all there is to life. It's not all about. It's like if other people get more money, if people get more success than you, you know what? Good for them. Congratulations. That's. I wish them all the very best of luck. And this kind of the next one, number 6, kind of follows on from that. In a way, life is unfair. The worst people often thrive while the best suffer. And this comes back to things that I've said in previous videos in this series, if you like, about kind of putting your morals on, if you had any to begin with anyway, on the side to get who you want or what you want out of this world. And sometimes that involves people being, quite frankly, nasty, vile pieces of work, unpleasant individuals, whether that's bribing people, using fraudulent documents, whatever it might be, manipulating people, using people, taking advantage of people, vulnerable people, desperate people, people in poverty. And I think I think it is built into the capitalist system. It's that predator and prey thing. I keep saying that in my videos, but that is there. That is a real part of human nature, that people want to prey on more vulnerable people. It's a dog eat dog world. I know people say that all the time, but it's the truth. It really is a dark, cold world out there. In terms of you only have to look through history to see some of the types of people that have made it to the top of their political systems and governments, and certain types of people involved in certain industries and scandals and stuff. It's often, these things are often littered with the most, some of the most vicious, animals you could ever possibly meet. It's just, and I think some people have this perspective that well, if you want success in life, then you've got to, success is, morality is the sacrifice that you have to abandon, essentially, to get the things that you desire out of this life, you know. And I think it's just about whether if you're willing or not to play that game. And I think if you're willing, if you can tolerate it, if you think that if you've got I think a lot of time it comes down to ego as well. You've got to have that ego in place. I think it's, if you don't have that, if you don't, I think that the world's full of sleazebags. I think it's full of really shitty people. And the higher that you go in life, the worse that people become. Not everybody, of course, but enough people. So, you know, there's so many good people out there, and some good people do make it, you know, in life, and some, you know, in their jobs, careers, whatever. But I'd say the vast majority of people out there that really get success in terms of business and money, power, status, and all that, they're often the shittiest of people. And no matter what people tell me, I'll just always believe that, you know. And it's just full of shitbags at the top, in some form or other. Okay, we're moving on to number 7 now. The majority of people you meet in life are not truly your friends, they're just passing through. Yeah, I've noticed that a great deal in Asia, having spent almost a decade here now, give or take. And, you know, when the first few years that I was here, you know, I used to meet a lot of people here, you know, sort of backpacking, and people were here for short holidays and whatever, just staying sort of like guest houses and all that kind of stuff. So, it really saddens me. It just really upsets me sometimes, this world. You know, it's really depressing, because we didn't have to get here. We didn't need to. Things didn't need to. You know, we didn't need to become the way we are. And when I say, yes, I'm generalising, but we didn't need to become such a selfishly driven, selfishly motivated species. You know, we didn't have to build these societies of just, I'm alright, Jack, and fuck you and fuck him, you know, fuck her, I don't give a fuck about those people kind of approach to life, you know. It's like, but what can you do, you know? People are who they are, and they are what they are. And it's just very depressing. It's very, very depressing. I wish people weren't the way they are, but they are, and people have their own reasons, I guess, for being the way they are. You know, but yeah, the vast majority of people you do meet in your life, because most people aren't going to be your friends, obviously. You know, you might know. Oftentimes, a lot of people come into your life for very short spells. I mean, even if they're in it for a decade or two, that's not that long, is it? Really, when you think about, say, the average lifespan of a human being, which is what, about 80 years, 85 years, let's say. So, you know, you can't expect that everyone who you come into contact with, even if you get along with them, you've got a lot in common, and you're going to be friends with them, but for the rest of your life, you know. You can try your best to maintain those friendships or relationships, but, you know, things change, circumstances change, because I'd say about every 7-8 years people change in some form or other, you know, whether it's they want to move cities, they want to change their relationships, they want to change their jobs. You know, people are going through some personal stuff that they don't talk to anybody about, so you don't know what's going on there, but you can tell something's not right with someone, or they just get bored of you at a certain stage, they get tired of the same conversations and they want something new. And things just sort of have a kind of natural, gradual change, and that's upsetting in sometimes to me, because I knew people, I still technically know people from, I don't talk to anymore, but the invitation's always there, if they want to reach out to me. There's people I've known for 30 years, and those relationships essentially broke down over the space of about a year or two, and it probably took I don't know, maybe a few years for those friendships to really kind of bloom into a friendship. So it just shows you how quickly things can die out, and sometimes you don't realise that the decays, the rot's already set in some way, and it might be from their side, it might be from yours. People's situations change when it comes to their personal lives. They might be going through some stuff with some drama, with some issues at home, home life with their partners. Well, maybe they're having children. Maybe they've run into some serious debt. Whatever it might be. Some other friendships broke down, or they're just going through some very deep stuff in themselves, and maybe they've got some stuff that they've never talked to you about, and you're just somehow, they see you as some kind of a barrier to their life in some capacity, or some whatever it might be. There's always a reason, but there's always something with people. There's always an excuse. There's always a reason, so-called. I think real, genuine friendships are very rare, and if you can maintain, let's say, a handful of them throughout your entire life, adult life, that is, it's easy to maintain friends when you're kids, when you're teenagers, because life hasn't really started for you, has it? Really, it's like when you get out into the real world, as my former art teacher John Everington used to say. Used to bang on about all the time. And he's right. God rest his soul. That's when you really see the challenges of human nature come into play, in terms of just how difficult it is to get friends as well as you get older, and to keep friends, because they usually want something from you in some way, and it's about finding out what that is sooner rather than later. Number 8, the concept of justice is often just an illusion we tell ourselves to cope with chaos. I have touched upon justice in this series, so I'm not going to go too much into this. Some of them I won't be going in too much in depth with, because I've covered them already, but I'll just briefly cover them. I think a lot that I've kind of developed this thought over the last 5 years about governments and powerful institutions, and that while there might be reasons why they have, there's obviously some justification for having a legal system, obviously, but it also it just shows you, what I've come to realise is that there's a great deal of double standards in this world when it comes to the authorities, or the powers that be, whatever you want to call those kind of groups of people, making choices and decisions and laying down the law for everyone apart from themselves. You see the unfairness there, you see the injustice of this world, that it's okay when this specific group of people does something, but when it's everybody else, it's a different matter. I don't think I mean, you know, a lot of the time, really, we don't. I think a lot of people don't get true justice. You know, to me, for example, you know, someone that commits a horrendous crime like murder should be given the death penalty. And in most parts of the Western world, certainly in Europe, as far as I know, that's not there. That's not in place. So people go to prison for decades, and people, you know, the population pay taxes that pays for that. You know, and I don't think that is justice. I don't think that is fair. Why should the public have to pay for these unworthy oxygen thieves, you know, that have done horrific stuff? Especially if you know, it's one, like I said before, if certain things are in self-defense and it was a last resort for whatever reason, that, you know, that's obviously more justified. But when it comes to killing people in cold blood or committing really heinous, terrible, cruel, horrific stuff, you know, this world can break you very quickly. It really can. And you know, there's a reason why those things are in place, because a lot of people would snap very quickly. And I think, you know, that's not just about giving this illusion of justice, which is, I suppose, in a way, is kind of an illusion. To me, justice would be the victims' families getting revenge on the people that commit crimes. And justice would be the public not having to pay for these scumbag criminals for decades. You know, it's why should these people that rob people of their life get the chance to live out their lives in relative peace? It's like, okay, yeah, they're in prison and all of that stuff's not particularly very pleasant, but you know, those are the consequences of committing serious crime. So, you know, in a sense, in that way, it's a bit of justice, because there's consequences of you know, there's repercussions there of doing terrible things. But when it comes to, but you know, it all boils down to what your thoughts on morality, I guess, are. And, you know, is it moral to? Is it a moral duty, let's say, to legalise capital punishment? You know, that's a whole other debate, really. So let's move on to number 9 here. Time never stops, and the older you get, the faster it seems to move. You know, Tiana, shout out to Tiana's channel. Great guy, great content, a brilliant mind. I must add, and also Lyrical Leisure. Two great channels out there, covering the kind of you know, the black pill side of this whole kind of movement of sort of the darker sides of human nature, and you know, women kind of playing quite a big part of that. But anyway, shout out to those guys, great guys. I sound like Donald Trump. Great guys. Make Britain great again. Let's do that. That would be nice. But that's not going to happen anytime soon. Anyway, make women great again. That's what we should do. So yeah, you know, I think as you do get older, that there's this sense that times it does feel like it's getting quicker. Like we're already in April now. It's like, you know, it wasn't like literally just took down the Christmas tree and the decorations around the house like literally 5 minutes ago, it feels. And here we are, you know, heading into what is spring in the Western world now. And we're moving into the rainy, not too far away from the rainy season here in Thailand. So, you know, it really comes around very quickly. And you know, I think when I was a kid, time seemed to just go on forever. Like it just never. You know, I remember like days at school that just seemed so long. You know, like it was just like such a ball ache. You know, like the whole day just felt, oh my god, is this ever going to end? Like classes just seemed to go on and on and on. a bit like these videos probably. And remember to laugh at yourself. That's an important thing to have in life. Anyway, yeah, I think time does seem to it feels like it's getting faster, you know, because the older that you get, you've lived longer, so you've had more experience with, you know, the framework of a year, and you know what that is because you've experienced it over and over and over again. So I guess in your mind it feels like it's going faster because you've got more experience of it, and also you're more aware of your mortality as you get older. So there's that aspect playing into it as well. But when you're a kid, you've got no experience, you know. I mean, even when you're in your teens, really, it's like you've got more life ahead of you. Whereas like now, I mean, yeah, at my age, I've still got more life ahead of me, probably, I hope. But, you know, once you say past the age of, say 21, let's say, maybe 25, for a lot of people, I think that's when you start to just very sort of subtly, gradually start noticing things about yourself. You know, I've started noticing I was having like grey hairs in my goatee here, and you know, I've got grey hairs on the sides of my hair. You can't really tell it on the camera. You can't really, because the camera's crap, potato quality. But but yeah, I've got grey hairs here and there. Not that it doesn't bother me, but it just, you you just see it. You can't just get away from it. You can't pretend that that's not happening. You know, it's like, and probably over the next 5-10 years, I'll probably start having. This will probably start thinning out. I'd imagine maybe it might start going a bit bald here on the crown. I'm guessing. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully, you know, I hope that my head hair stays as long as possible. But of course, at some point, it will start to. I'll start to lose colour over the top there, and you know, I'll start having. My hair will start thinning out probably in my 40s, maybe mid-40s, certainly by the time I'm 50. So I've got that to look forward to. Great. What a prize. Thanks, nature. Thanks, biology. So, you know, it's I think we just get so busy as we get older with thinking about shit all the time. That's the problem. We're just so constantly just thinking, and it just wears you down. You know, it's like it's just this never-ending cycle of just please just stop. You know, you just want to you just want to shut your brain off at times. You know, and because of that, you know, it's like you're looking for distractions all the time. You're getting caught up in this phase and that phase, and you're going from this to that, and whatever, you know, you're getting caught up in addictions, whatever it might be, with, you know, games, you know, junk food, women, because we want to fill our days with something, don't we? We want to have something, some kind of substance to our lives, and you know, as life goes on, you realise that time's running out, and that your youth's running out, your health's not as good as it used to be, your body's not as competent as it used to be, and it starts to slowly but surely essentially just give up, really. You know? Your body's just not as resilient anymore, and so, you know, the only way around that, really, and I suppose it's probably going to be something that happens within maybe towards the end of my life, I would imagine, is genetic engineering. I mean, that might be the way you might be able to slow down aging maybe by a decade or two, possibly in the near future. But I suppose over the course of, let's say, the next century or two, maybe within a century, I'd say maybe 2 centuries, let's say, it may be, I mean, I don't know, it may very well be possible at some point that we reach a stage of immortality. I don't know, who knows? But by that time, you know, I certainly won't be here. Number 10 is most of your deepest fears will come true at some point in some form. Yeah, I mean, most people have fears about, you know, their health, their best friendships breaking down, you know, their marriages, relationships ending in some way or other. You know, their job not working out, you know, not getting on with certain colleagues at work, and that's going to become a problem at a certain point. You know, the situation you're in, you know that it's not working out for you, you know you've got to change, you know there's, you know things are wrong, but you don't really want to talk about them because it's too, it's going to lead to arguments. So, you know, we all have fears about ourselves, you know, about the things that we think and feel, and we question our, you know, are we really decent people? You know, am I a decent person? Am I a ethical, morally grounded individual? And while I might think that I am, and I certainly try to be, I probably am in some ways, and I'm not, you know, I'm not saying that I'm not a bad person per se, but I'm not. I can't really sit here and say that I'm a really good individual or a truly nice individual, because I'm not. You know, I'm just like anybody else. It's like I have my up days, my down days. You know, I can be a pain in the ass at times. I can sometimes be problematic, I guess. I can sometimes have, my tantrums, and you know, we've all got shitty parts of ourselves that, you know, we all like to think that. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that most people are bad, but we can't say we can't say we're legitimately good human beings. I don't think we are, because it's just not. I don't think that we can be. You know, there's so many complications in life. There's too many dilemmas. There's too many. Life's too complicated a lot of the time. You know, to be, and it's not always in your interest to be decent and good all the time either. So sometimes you have to kind of abandon at moments. Sometimes it's like sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind kind of thing. Sometimes you have to do things and say things that you know are going to have a negative reaction, are going to lead to some negative outcome, but you might have good intentions behind it, you know. So, but anyway, you know, yes, your deepest fears often will come true. You know, I'm well aware that my parents are not going to be with me, you know, forever. You know, maybe I might witness the death of one of my brothers, or my sister at some stage, if I don't go first. You know, my uncle in Australia, he'll probably pass away probably in the next 20 years, I'd imagine. And I imagine probably one of my parents will probably pass away first. So I'm aware of these things, you know. I'm aware of possibly getting a call one day that, you know, somebody that I knew from schools passed away that was a really close friend at the time. You know, of course, you know, these things are, it's not like I don't think about these things. We all do. We all worry about these kind of things because we all know these things will happen at some point, unless we go first, you know. So, and it's not just that. It's, you know, it's fear of being incompetent. It's a fear of not being enough for somebody. You know, it's a fear of getting old alone. You know, a fear of not finding the right, or, you know, as best as you can possibly find the most compatible woman for you or partner. You know, it's a fear of feeling like you've failed your siblings in some way. You know, you're not being. You know, you're failing yourself. You know, whatever it might be. You know, you're not achieving anything in life. You know, you're not progressing in any way. You're not evolving in some way. And to me, that's what eats me up a lot of the time. Honestly, that's what bothers me. Is that I feel like I'm wasting my life away. You know, I'm about to hit 35 in a few weeks. You know, what are we on today? What was it? 3rd of April, I think it is. You know, I'm going to be 35 in just over 3 weeks' time. You know, and at this point in my life, like, you know, there's sometimes I just think, you know, what have I truly done? What have I really achieved so far? Like, I mean, okay, I've finished my bachelor's degree. I've run a half marathon. I've travelled a little bit. You know, I got married, if you can call that an accomplishment. You know, I've had jobs. I've had money in the past, a little bit of money, and I had friends at one time, believe it or not. I've done things. I have done things, but sometimes I feel like it's not enough for me. I haven't done enough with my life, and that hurts me actually. That really bothers me sometimes, and I know that I've got to find out what I want to do with my life. That's the problem. Is where do I go? What do I want to do with it? With whatever time I've got left on this planet. And sometimes the answer to that is I just don't know. I don't know anymore. I don't even know if I want to do anything anymore. But so there's a fear of wasting your life, of reaching your deathbed and and having regrets and guilt, and there's a fear of death. Of course, you think about it. I don't obsess about it, thankfully, as much as I used to 2-3 years ago, but it does bother me. Sometimes I have pains around my around my heart area, around my chest, like from time to time, and I start wondering, am I going to have a heart attack now? Am I going to, is something seriously wrong with me? Or do I have some disease or something? And your past, you think, is my past going to come back to bite me on the ass? The lack of exercise, I'm going to have diabetes in the next few years, I'm going to have heart disease, I'm going to die young. So, we've all got fears, we're all worrying about what's coming down the line, what's the next thing that's going to happen to me, that's going to cause a shitstorm in my life. The next section is human nature and society. Number 11 is people are selfish at their core. Altruism usually has a hidden price. I have talked about altruism before. I can't remember which video it is, and that doesn't matter. But I've touched upon it, and I'll just say that. Look, there are decent people, as best as they can be anyway. I think for out there, there are some people that try to do the right things at times in life. There are people who do try to show kindness and empathy and compassion and do selfless acts. Of course, there are people out there who are trying to make the world a better place and because they want to do that. But do I think that those are the vast majority of people? I don't know. I don't know. I think, of course, there's always some kind of hidden, kind of agenda in some way or other. There's some driven element within people that pushes them to do things, whether it's good or bad. So there's always a reason why people do things. But I do think that. I think that a lot of people. I think a lot of people try the best, but they're also people can be very selfish a lot of the time. For very for a lot of different because there's so many factors going on in people's lives that you don't often know about, and so it's not always just purely selfish driven focus. It's sometimes it's born out of a need to want to do something better with their life, something that gives people a sense of meaning in their life, something to want to get up for, something to fight for, something to work towards, to try and be, I guess, an example of a role model, an example of a mentor, an example of someone trying to change the world in some positive way, even if it's just something small. I don't think everybody's purely selfish. I mean, I think it's a bit more complicated than that. But I would say that there's I don't think it's pure selfishness. I think that there's a selfish element sometimes in acts of kindness and generosity in some way, whether it's on a deeper level or whether it's because they feel that there's some obligation or duty to do it, or there's some motivating factor involved somewhere down the line maybe. So I don't think everyone's completely selfish, I'd say that, but I do think that selfishness plays a lot of the time plays a part in people's motivations. And that's something that I have to admit I've done as well at different times in my life. I'm not proud of it, but you know, it's just a fact that I have been selfish. I've been selfish sometimes. I put my own needs, prioritise my own wants, my own needs over those of others that probably needed. You know, that I just could have been a better person. I could have been a nicer person at times in my life. And if I could go back and undo things and be that better person back then, I would do so. Absolutely. But you can't, can you? You can't. Number 12. The world is run by greed, not kindness or intelligence. I don't think that's strictly true, really. You know, there are people working in conservation efforts, you know, in the Amazon rainforest. There are people working with animals in Africa, and you know, people trying to find solutions to medical problems, you know, health issues through, you know, the pharmaceutical industry, the scientific community were trying to find cures for certain diseases, or at least to try and slow down the progression of certain diseases. And yes, you could say, well, yeah, they're doing it because it's their job. Yes, but they're also passionate about it, and they want to do it. They want to be able to give something out to the world that makes the world a better place, at least for us anyway. So I don't think it's completely run by greed. I don't think that's entirely true. I think when you're talking about the people at the very, very, very top of society, then yeah, I think probably a lot of the time that does come down to greed, because there's a point where you cross that line from, you know, there's a point where money no longer kind of matters really that much anymore, but you essentially just become driven by your own ego at that point to how much more can I get? How many more ridiculously expensive cars or yachts or houses or private jets can I afford? You know, how much more money can I get into my account? You know, I think, but you know, sometimes some people at the very bottom of society can be just as greedy, just as ruthless as well. You know, you think about drug dealers and drug addicts and things. Some of the things that those people do. Yeah, it's a different thing, but it's essentially kind of it's just greed in a different form. You know, so greed it's in there within all of us. We've all been greedy at times. You know, who hasn't had, you know, who hasn't ordered way too much food, you know, on a Friday, Saturday night, you know, because you're just in the mood for you know, takeaway or whatever. And it's like we can all be greedy, but there's a difference between like just pigging out and, you know, sort of being greedy with your food and not sharing it with your family or whatever, and ruthlessly ripping people off and undercutting people and cutting corners in your industry, as a foreman or as a manager of a company to save money, to make more profit kind of thing, and putting people's safety at risk. That's a whole different level of shitbaggery kind of thing going on. There are certainly a lot of very powerful people in this world that are incredibly motivated purely by greed, and whether that's with regards to military power, a political drive, screwing over the population, for political gain, for financial gain. People can be very greedy, and it's not just at the extremities of human nature either. You can find it in all walks of life, in all various different types of situations. Companies not wanting to pay you a decent wage because it would cut into their profits. People not paying the money that they owe you back because they're just all they do is take. It's a difference when you can't afford to pay it back, but when it's like when you've actually got the money even more than that other person that you lent the money from, then you're just an absolute hideous individual. So yeah, greed is definitely a part of human nature, but it takes different forms, I think. 13 humans destroy the very things they rely on to survive. Well, when you have to look at the state of the Amazon rainforest, just as one example. Parts of Africa, parts of Asia, with deforestation going on. Damage to the oceans, with God knows how much rubbish get pumped into the ocean every day, or rivers, erosion of soil because of too much use of insecticides and pesticides and all that kind of stuff. So just damage to ecosystems to get access to certain plants or trees. Palm oil is a good example. I think like Malaysia has like the biggest supply of palm oil I think in the world. You only have to look at any. I think like most peanut butter has it. Palm oil is one of the worst types of oil in the world, and I think the amount of damage, the amount of destruction that goes on to plant, in the process of getting palm oil, in terms of pollution. We can obviously look at mining, the damage that mining does. Of course we do need raw materials, otherwise we wouldn't have anything. I wouldn't have the iPad that I'm using to make this video on. But I just think that I think a lot of people that talk, going back to the greed thing again, they don't care. They're raking in the money, even though it's doing untold damage to the environment. Maybe not so much now, but in the future it'll have severe consequences for future generations. But as long as that money keeps rolling in, some of the people that are in charge of these big oil companies and mining companies, some of these people really are some of the worst people, man. They really are some of the most ruthless pieces of shit in existence on this planet. They really truly are. Some of them. The very, very worst of society. The very worst. Some of them even, I would say that some of those people are even worse than certain people sit in prison. Okay, let's move on. I'm conscious of my battery on my iPad here. I haven't even got through half of these yet. So maybe in the last section of my last video, speeding up towards the end to try and fit more in. So it's difficult to get through these without examining them a bit closer. I just think that damage in the environment just seems to be. And the thing is, once those raw materials are gone on the planet, that's that. Then it will be a case of mining asteroids, mining Mars, the Moon. Probably at some point we'll have to start mining the other planets in our solar system, the ones we can actually get land on, it's obviously, unless we're going to start mining gases and from Jupiter and Saturn or whatever, or the moons of the gas giants or something, which should probably happen at some stage of I'd say within a century, I reckon. We're going to have to. There's no other way around it. Certainly aren't going to any exoplanets anytime soon, that's for sure. Even the best ones are like over 1,000 light years away from here. So yeah, it's not happening. Not in my lifetime, that's for sure. Number 14, the vast majority of people are easily manipulated by media, religion. I think. Well, that's why religion exists, doesn't it? Because it's just one of those areas of society where it shows you that the vulnerabilities, the weaknesses of the human mind, that we want something to believe in, don't we? We want to have hope. We want to feel that there's something there for us at the end. It's that this life isn't all there is to it. And yeah, the media does control and manipulate people. I've talked about advertising and the way marketing sort of works a bit before in another video. But yeah, at the very least, manipulation, pure manipulation is going on to get people to buy things, to get people to not do things, to get people to vote a certain way. The algorithm on YouTube, for example, is a form of manipulation, really. And the people that are in control of these things, that especially when it comes to consumerism, they know what works. They know the psychology of the human mind and how susceptible it is, and how the power of persuasion can really get people to do things or not. So but yeah, religion is a really serious area, and the amount of things I've seen with these these super churches and these preachers pretending that they're performing miracles and all that kind of stuff, and just essentially kind of just guilt tripping people and just really preying on a lot of people are vulnerable, man. They're really vulnerable a lot of the time, especially older people. People's lives can be so messy and so emotionally charged that people just, I guess, sort of naturally look for comfort, look for a way out, look for a way to cope with life, and I think for some people it's religion, for some people it's sex, for some people it's art, music, it's gaming. For other people it's making money, it's avoiding thinking about their life. It's focusing on movies or comedy, etc. Okay, we're moving on to the next one here, which is number 15, which is love and loyalty are often conditional, based on convenience and benefit. Yeah, I did talk about this. I think it was in the very first video, if I'm remembering that correctly. And I don't really want to go into this too much, but yeah, I think there's often a mutual benefit, really, in relationships, friendships, love. There's something where there's a kind of supply and demand kind of thing going on. It's essentially kind of like a business transaction. It's really it is conditional. It's if my needs are met, I'll meet yours. And that's often what it comes down to. Or it's more about being attracted to the emotional high of it initially, and the physical attraction of somebody. But as you mature, as you get older, that's not quite as don't get me wrong, that matters. It's definitely, obviously, there's no denying that we are. I can't speak for women, but as a guy, I am partly physically attracted to women, because it's not just about that at this point in my life. It's like I've got to actually like the person. I've got to get along with them. There's got to be some compatibility there in our personality types, and overall character. What can we laugh at? What can we share together? What can we offer each other? What can we bring to the table to make our lives better? That's what it should be about, really. It's not. It can't just be about sexual desires all the time, or someone making you feel happy or good. It's like it should be a privilege. It should be an opportunity to enjoy each other, and to really like each other's company, because it benefits you both. It makes you both. You like each other. You actually want to be with each other. You like spending time with each other. Maybe not all the time, but most of the time. So it's. I think as you get older, maybe I think loyalty and trust and respect are much more important than these brain chemistry type of kind of fueled lustful kind of situationships. And don't get me wrong, it's obviously we all want to be a little bit kinky and all that kind of stuff at times, and we all want to jump into bed with the person that we like or want or whatever, but that's a natural part of being a human being. But I think as time goes on in relationships, you've got to have more than that, and it has to some extent. Yes, it should be conditional in a way, I suppose, but also in another way, I think it has to be a healthy kind of conditional situation. And I think in the last video I was talking more about the negative side of that. 16, power and money can turn even the kindest people into monsters. Kind of touched on that. I think money, the more money that's involved, the more, it's not even such as the money, it's the things that come with the money. It's access to women, it's access to resources, it's access to certain people that can sometimes make people become. I think it can corrupt people in many ways. I think that's it's not the money, it's the exposure to certain things for too long, I think, that causes problems. If you see me looking over my shoulder, it's because sometimes I hear a noise, and I'm just seeing if my dog's picking up on something. Hopefully there won't be an earthquake today. So, look, it's not everybody. Not everybody becomes corrupted, but I think it's a very fine line, and it's very easy to get corrupted by money. I would say very, very easy. The more money they have, the more, really, in certain ways in society anyway, like the more freedom you've got, the more options you've got, the more you can get things out of people and out of life, because you can afford it. You can bribe people, you can keep people quiet, etc. So I don't know. It's easy to let money get to your head. It's easy for the ego to take over when you have that high life. When you have that exposure to a lifestyle, especially when you haven't had it. And I think it's very easy to fall into that trap of letting money essentially control you. 17, people care more about appearances than substance. Yeah, especially I think this is certainly the case when it comes to dating. Many people look on. I did it when I was my early 20s, before I met my ex. Sorry, very, very, very late teens, so 18, 19, 20, and then in my mid to late, well, middle to later part of my 20s, from time to time when I wasn't sure whether relationships pan out and so on, where you look on dating sites and you think, and you just think, not that I really was going to go off or anything, but you do ponder on it from time to time. You do look and you think, I wonder what my life might be like with this individual, or if things would have turned out in a different way, and how my life would have gone in a different direction. And I think a lot of the time it's, again, going back to that physical appearances thing, that attraction. It's easy as a guy, I think, to get overwhelmed by that. I think we are the sort of visually stimulated creatures. Again, I'm guessing it's probably something to do with our survival that causes that. But yeah, I think, and I think that also applies to things like political leaders, just leaders in general, that how somebody talks, how articulate somebody is, just how somebody dresses, or how somebody comes across to you, how someone looks, can really, it can trick you. It's very easy to get fooled by that. It's easy to get drawn into logos and imagery and certain colour schemes and certain language and certain routines and habits and things, and because it's more comfortable that way. It feels more. We just like things that way. So I don't think it's like what they say, isn't it? Never judge a book by its cover. Well, sadly, people do judge a book often to some extent by its cover, because otherwise they wouldn't pick it up if they didn't. So we do that, and we do that and so that translates. That's the same process more or less with people. Yes, we listen to what people say and we make judgments then, but I think initially it's how someone looks, and certainly when it comes to women and dating and choosing a male mate, it's often down to how they look, I think, initially. And I suppose there's that element of, is this stock, as it were, good stock for any potential children that I might have. So there's that aspect on that side of things. But yeah, appearances on dating websites, on social media, especially on things like TikTok and Instagram, for example. Even on YouTube, I think these days, appearance seems to really be at the forefront of a lot of things, with people portraying themselves in a certain way, and trying to maintain a certain image, a certain personality that comes across, I think. And yeah, I just think you've got to be very careful with that, actually. It's often misleading, it's often manipulative, and appearances can often, it's easy to get sucked into all that, and because I would rather just people were just authentic, really. I'd rather you just like, with me, this is me, this is who I am. Not all the time, but like, this is pretty much me. I'm not putting on anything on it. I'm just being honest and open with you. Not, I'm just being me. So I just think it's better. I think it's better to just try and be as authentic as you can, unless it's there's some reason for not being so, like you're acting, or you're doing some kind of role play or something, or whatever, something ridiculous. But some situations perhaps where often, like, for example, in job interviews or things like that, where you feel pressure to sort of put on to give off a certain energy, a certain vibe, because there's something to gain from it. I kind of prefer not to do that anymore, really. I just prefer to just be me and just be honest.
And actually, sometimes that actually kind of pays off eventually for you. But a lot of people won't give you the time of day. But people that are similar like yourself will give you the chance. And sometimes it's better to persevere to meet those kind of people. Number 18, if you disappeared tomorrow, most people wouldn't notice or care for long. Well, I think if I disappeared tomorrow, I know that my siblings would obviously, my parents, my siblings would obviously be very worried. And I've thought about that before a few times. And certainly my wife would be very worried, and I'm sure if some news got out into the media and some old friends picked up it, I'm sure they probably would be concerned, in some way. The thing is, you can't always take things too personally, because there might be reasons why people aren't reaching out to. It might not always be some sinister, some negative, horrible motives or anything, some agenda going on. Sometimes it's just that sometimes people are waiting for you to reach out to them. Sometimes it's that they don't know what to do, they don't know how to reconnect, they don't know what to say, they don't want to. I know, but obviously sometimes people are just not interested. But I would imagine if I did disappear, if some news that said that I was here at a certain place at a certain time, and he hasn't been seen since this point, since this time, then I would imagine that some people would be concerned. I think, and actually might be more concerned than I could ever possibly have imagined. So. But I would imagine that at a certain stage, that of course people, if for a few years, if I wasn't found, if I just wanted to kind of stay off the radar kind of thing for some reason, let's say, or if I was dead, or my body had never been found for whatever happened to me, then at a certain point people would move on, wouldn't they? They would have to. If there's no answers there, if there's no evidence, then what can you do? It's like they might think about it, but they're not proactively going out of their way to kind of. That's not their duty, is it really? That's their that's your family's, your loved ones' responsibility, really. But then again, I suppose if they were genuine, real friends, they would be trying to help as well, I suppose. But I don't know. It's difficult because people have got so many obligations and with work and children and all the rest of it. So I would hope that some people would care and would help in the search, maybe. But I think most of them wouldn't bother after a certain period of time. They'd just move on, and I wouldn't blame them. But it would be tragic, because I would, if I could, I would go looking for them. If in some way, if I could. 19. The rich get richer while the poor struggle to stay afloat. Okay, so yeah, a lot of the time, I think the system really is set up, in my opinion. Call me a conspiracy theorist, but I really believe strongly that the government especially is there to empower itself, and it's there to keep a very rigid, as best as it possibly can. Of course, things always change, but as best as it can to try and keep some kind of a system in place, some kind of a structure, if you like, in place that it's not so much just promotes the rich getting richer, but it keeps money mostly in the hands of those that they want it to keep it in, because it's advantageous to them. But yeah, there's definitely some. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the rich. That could be, the upper working classes, the middle classes. So sometimes it's not always necessarily a good thing for the rich to keep all the wealth in society. So for various reasons, economically speaking. So yeah, I think economic instability it just seems to be to me, it seems like it's just a real goal of government to kind of keep that in place, because it empowers the government and it keeps the capitalist system flowing. And I guess maybe that inequality, the unfairness is what powers that wealth, that concentrates that wealth in a small number of people's hands. Okay, number 20, the justice system doesn't exist for fairness, it exists to maintain control. I already talked about that a bit earlier. Does it exist for fairness? I mean, I think I'd say that some judges do their jobs because they want to try to maintain some sense of justice and morality and fairness in the legal system, and for people to believe in it and people to have hope for it, because the alternative would be far worse. So I suppose, but it also is, it's also there because it's along that same trend of thought. It is there to control the population, isn't it, really, in a way. It's so. But is it there purely for fairness? Well, no, because obviously it's an incredibly rich area of society. There's a lot of money involved in the legal system and maintaining it, and lawyers and barristers and judges, they get paid a hell of a lot of money to do what they do. But often the justice system doesn't appear to me to be there really just to serve fairness and justice when it comes to people that are either involved in the legal system itself, or those that kind of have some political will or some political motivations and conflicts of interest kind of thing going on, and it often seems to turn a blind eye when it's most convenient, and then you sort of see the double standards of it all. So I don't think we should follow the law entirely. I don't think we should always follow the law completely. I think we should always be willing to challenge it and to question it and push the legal system as far as we possibly can, without doing anything particularly dangerous or violent or wrong. But you should be able to push it. I think there should be a little bit of leverage there. I think there should be interpretation of it at times, I think. But also, I think if a judge does something wrong, then they should face the full consequences of the law, just as the average man or woman should, in my opinion. It should be an equal playing field, really. It shouldn't be one law for the more wealthy, affluent, powerful individuals in society, and another or two for everybody else. How is that fair? That's not right. That's not a legal system, in my opinion. Okay, we're moving on now to the next section, which is relationships and love. Most relationships end in heartbreak, betrayal, difference. Yeah, I've talked about this already. But yeah, it's true. Look, most love stories, if you like, don't. We're going to have to watch any kind of or read any kind of love stories to realise that love doesn't last. It doesn't last, and the vast majority of relationships and marriages will end in heartbreak at some stage or other. The average person is probably going to go through at least a handful of relationships in their lifetime, and maybe 2 or 3 marriages. I would imagine in my lifetime, possibly I might go through I might get married again at some point. I don't know what the future is. But I would imagine, if this all comes to an end at some point, I'll probably meet somebody again at some stage, maybe. So, I just think that things, people betray others' trust all the time. People lie about all sorts of things. People keep secrets, and you know that's people cheat. People have affairs. You know, people can be really shitty when it comes to relationships, and you know people often say it's better to have love than to have never ever had any relationships, and I don't know, maybe there's some truth to that, but sometimes you've got to see you could have also saved yourself a hell of a lot of headaches. 22. True love doesn't always last. It can fade or be broken beyond repair. Yeah, I think that's true. You know, I think I would say the first couple of years of a relationship are good. They're the good years. That's the golden phase. You know, that's the early stage of a relationship. Usually are pretty good. You know, I say for a couple of years things can be good. You know, but there comes a certain point where you just start noticing things changing, and you start noticing that you're not tolerating the other person as much as you used to. You might not like the person as much as you used to, and I think just slowly but surely things start to kind of just fade away, and you just boredom sets in, and things become too. The cycle just becomes the same thing over and over again, and you just kind of feel yourself just sort of separating mentally from someone. And that's usually that usually goes on for years, and until someone eventually walks away, or it's just a big argument, and then step by step things start to break down, and it's like a plant dying, I suppose. It doesn't usually just die straight away, does it? It's like it's a gradual process of decay. It's like watching a piece of fruit get rotten. It's a gradual deterioration, decaying process, and that applies to often with friendships and romantic relationships. It's a shame, but that's the reality of being a human being. You know, people get a bit tired of seeing the same face. You know, fucking the same persons over and over again for so many years. You know, there's only so many things you can talk about before you run out of things to talk about. You know, so it's just. You know, people's emotions, their thoughts change as they get older and time moves on, and the gloss of someone that you saw initially wears away. You see it in them and they see it in you, and I think there comes a point where you kind of just like going through the motions of it all, and then there comes a point, and it's hard to pinpoint exactly, and it's probably different from couple to couple, but there's usually something somewhere along the line that sets off a series of then events that gradually lead to the end of that relationship. 23. People settle in relationships more often than they find true happiness. Well, I can tell you from my perspective that I did basically do that. I settled into my relationship, and I probably shouldn't have. It's like I don't want to say I don't regret it so much, but I don't regret it because I did what I felt was right at the time. But I think in hindsight I probably could have done better, and I probably could have might be better to have stayed single for longer. Certainly in my early 20s I shouldn't have got involved with the woman that I did, but hey ho, hindsight's 20/20, isn't it, as I say. But yeah, I think a lot of people just kind of get comfortable and they get settled into situations and a certain lifestyle of certain routines, and eventually it just kind of breaks their soul over time. And you see it in people. You see that they're over it. You know, they're so over it. They've been over it for years, and you can just see it. It's written all over the face. Probably written all over mine. Sometimes. Well, it's not the worst relationship you could possibly have, but it's not. I can't exactly say it's the best either. Then again, I've got no real frame of reference apart from my past relationship, and that wasn't exactly great. But in some ways, it was better than this one. Actually, I have to admit. Would I go back? No. Absolutely not. 24, someone you love deeply might only see you as an option, not a priority. You know, this is something that I've pondered on in my relationship, and I guess in others, is that, you know, sometimes I do think there is an imbalance of love. There's an, or whatever I call love. There's an imbalance of intimacy. There's an imbalance of not all couples. Sometimes people get lucky and find, you know, someone that. And the thing is, it's a complicated area because sometimes you need things that. Sometimes it can be toxic to have too much of something that you want. Sometimes it can be detrimental to your own motivation in life, you know, to change, to become something better. So sometimes sometimes it's better to not have certain things. So, and sometimes it's actually, in the end, it's better to. Sometimes it's better to learn to let people go, let people on their way, you know. Cherish the times and stuff you had, but don't let, you know. I think there comes a point where you have to accept that it's just time to move on from certain relationships, from certain friendships, even from certain places where you live, you know, even certain habits. There comes a point where you just need to change. You've got to change for your own sanity, and sometimes that means making difficult decisions, and that sometimes can mean having to let people go. You know, and it's sad. It's hard that seems to be a factor of life. And I think the older you get, the more that you realise that. You realise how bittersweet this life really is. At times, anyway. Okay, we're at the halfway mark. I don't know how long this video's been going now, but I'm going to try and get through this second half a bit faster because my battery's wearing out on my iPad here, and yeah. 25, marriage is often a contract of convenience, not a bond of everlasting love. Well, I think that pretty much common sense, isn't it? I mean, you know, I don't think anybody really truly believes in everlasting love unless you're, you know, a 13-year-old or something and you've been watching too many Disney movies or something, reading too many fairy tale stories. We all want to believe in it, don't we? We all want to believe in this fairy tale of, you know, romance and. You know, romance does exist, but if you think that if you think it's gonna last you forever, then you're sadly mistaken. It's not gonna happen. It wears off. You know, you just get. It's like a switch that just goes off over the course of many years. It doesn't appeal to you as much anymore. It doesn't do as much for you anymore. It would only, I suppose, reignite it if it was with somebody else. I suppose. This is just the natural state of long-term relationships, long-term marriages. You know, these things, you know, these extreme emotions don't last forever. You know, at a certain point, you essentially have to find a reason to stay together. You know, it's like in the early stages, you stay together because of how you feel about the other person. You know, it's like how you feel in yourself because you're with that person. But I think over time, the difficulties of life, personal life, professional life, situations, and, you know, the pressures of work and family, maybe some financial problems, maybe, you know, the natural course of life and different stages that happen, aging, you know, health decline, you know, I guess romance just doesn't. It's not the be all and end all. It's not everything. And I think really romance is there essentially to get you to commit to someone. It's a bonding experience, really. That's what brings people together. And that's why it doesn't last, because it serves a purpose. It has a role. It has a time period. And I guess when you kind of gotten set into your relationship and comfortable, and there's no threat of that person kind of leaving you, I guess that's the point where that starts then to fade, because there's no pressure then, I guess. So I think romance is kind of a bit of a pressure, a built-in kind of pressure system to kind of secure that person's interest. Okay, so we're going to start going a bit faster through these now, because I'm very curious and very conscious of my battery here. It's only on 38%. I should have charged it before, but never mind. That's life. 26 cheat is far more common than most people. I actually think a lot of people are cheating. I think probably within any social circle, I reckon I would say probably on average, let's say within I'd say probably in, let's say, 10 people, I reckon maybe 4 out of 10, maybe even 5 out of 10 are probably cheating or have cheated at some point, or will cheat at some stage. Because I think it's not about the cheating as such. It's about the break away from the monotony. It's a break away from the normal. It's a break away from the tiring nature of people. You know, we can all become tiresome to people, and I'm boring sometimes. You know, I'm boring to listen to. I don't mean to be, but I probably am. And so I don't think that it's that people are necessarily bad people because they have affairs. I think it's not so much it's the affair. It's the fact that it's often down to a lack of communication. Really, a lot of the time, that people either felt that they couldn't communicate, or felt threatened in their relationship in some way. Maybe there's domestic abuse going on. Maybe there's I don't know. There could be all sorts of reasons why couples aren't having sex anymore. And I think often a lot of the time, once a relationship reaches that point, especially with, let's say, couples in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, let's say, I reckon once that goes out the window, that's a major red flag in my opinion, because there's something deeply wrong there. And even if it's like, you know, different sex drives, it's that way, you know, I don't know, it's difficult, because like you know, I suppose in a way sex is kind of a part of it. It's like if you're not interested in having sex anymore, to me, as a young man, relatively young man, that still plays an important part in my life, in a way, because it's connected to intimacy, and for me that matters to me. It might not matter to every man out there or every woman out there, but to me that's an important part of bonding with someone, and you know that's essentially what separates that circumstance from a roommate or a friendship. You know, it's like if you're not having sex anymore, then you're not a couple anymore, in my opinion. You know, you might as well not live together anymore. You might as well have separate bedrooms. You might as well not even be in a relationship anymore, because that's like a really key part of bonding. You know, and also it's kind of partly, you know, let's not pretend that it wasn't a big part of the relationship early on as well. You know, it's one of the major things that kept you together. So I think cheating, it probably is a lot more common, and probably for everybody, for at least a handful of people that anyone knows, a couple of them will probably be actively cheating. And and they'll get caught eventually. And some people get away with it for years. Some people get caught the first time. It's not an ideal situation to find yourself in. Like I said before, if you're thinking about cheating, just walk away, because it just does you more harm than good. It doesn't solve anything. It just causes more problems than it's worth in the end. It really isn't worth it. It's not worth the argument and drama and the guilt that'll come with it later on, which you might not think you'll have, but it'll come, and you'll regret it later on. Especially if you end up getting someone pregnant that you didn't plan to. So there's that aspect to it as well. Okay, 27 here, I think. So I'm just reading through it. 27. People lie constantly to tell to themselves. And yeah, I think lying is actually a seriously ingrained part of our nature. Really, we don't like putting ourselves in a situation where we feel uncomfortable, or we feel pressured. I think, especially in the Western world, to have manners, to be polite, to maintain civility and civil discourse, and to maintain a level of pleasantry, a level of niceness in social situations or in conversations with people. And so I think we often lie. Not I wouldn't say that the vast majority of lying is sort of black, is dark, or is somehow there's some maliciousness going on somewhere. I think a lot of the time it's just born out of trying not to offend people, trying to be nice to what we deem to be nice to people. But I suppose on the flip side, you could actually say that I think sometimes it's better to just have it all open, lay down on the table, really, because then you know where you stand with people. Because that's the problem. That's often what leads to the decline of friendships and relationships. It's those little lies that usually build up over time that then lead to bigger lies, and all it comes down to is you just having to defend a series of lies, like justify it all to yourself, and it just becomes, you get to a point where you just can't handle it anymore, and then arguments occur, and then someone loses their cool, someone says some things that they've been meaning to say for years and haven't said. So I know with most people that most people aren't being completely open and honest with me, aren't telling me the real truth, what they think and feel about me. But I know that because I do the same thing. It's like I don't always tell people exactly how I feel and think about them all the time, but I do try to. But I try to do it in a way that's respectful. And I think that's what we should do. You can be honest with people, but you can do it in a respectful way. But don't bullshit people as well. Like don't tell people what you think is what needs to be said, because there's not enough time to just keep lying to each other all the time, especially about important things. It's like if it's just something small or it's not particularly any real significance, then it's not that. I don't think it's bad to lie in those circumstances. But when it comes to serious things that really matter, I think it's important to be as honest and as truthful as you can. Because usually those stuff come back to bite on the ass eventually. So it doesn't do any good to just keep lying to people, and certainly not to yourself. So I think honesty is quite a rare trait in a lot of people, really. But I also get why people are the way they are, and it's not like I don't understand it, because we all face the difficulties, and we know we're all worried about. If I say this, if I express this emotion right now, or say this right now, then this is going to happen, or this might happen. So we live in that constant state of fear, don't we? That pressure to conform and be nice, as it were. Okay, let's move on to 28. 28. You can love someone with all your heart and still be completely wrong for each other. do you know what? This is absolutely spot on. Absolutely. You know, like I said before, love isn't always enough. In fact, sometimes love can be the very worst thing. Sometimes for certain people, because it's harder to break away from that person than, you know, when. Not necessarily because it's toxic, but you just might just not be the right people for each other. You know, it's like you might love each other, but you're just entirely different people. You know, just have a different outlook on life. You're just incredibly different. You know, it's like, you know, you're just not very compatible. You know, it's like it might be all fun and games to start with, but then over time, it's like that novelty wears off, and then you're left with, once the emotions go, it's like then you have to actually try and find something in common with each other, you know, and that's where it really gets difficult, because if you've got nothing in common with each other, it's not going to work, is it? Doesn't matter, and even if you still feel those emotions, it's like, you know, it's a minefield. It's navigating these troubles of life is it's difficult, very difficult, and I've been there. I was in love with my ex for quite a number of years, and I really, really genuinely loved her. I really cared about her, and you know, I tried to help her as much as I could in my own sort of small ways and whatever, and she did with me. But in the end, we just weren't right for each other, you know. And I don't want to go into that, but we just weren't. You know, the reality was we just weren't compatible with each other. It's like no matter how much she felt about me or I felt about that, I think more of it wasn't reciprocal anyway. But then again, you also have to know when to fight for something, or to see the potential in something or someone. That's also another thing you have to think about. Is, you know, it's sometimes it's not easy to know when to give up, to walk away from someone, and when to persevere a little bit and see if something goes somewhere. That's hard, you know. That is, having that level of patience and concern. You're not quite sure whether something's right for you or not. Sometimes you just have to go on your gut instinct. You have to go on what you think is your intuition and go with the flow that way. But even then, you might still be wrong, you know. So you just can't always know. You can't always know. Sometimes until it's too late, and you're attached to each other. Okay. 29. Loneliness is an unavoidable part of life, no matter how social you are. Yeah, I mean, I used to have friends, and a lot of the time I kind of feel a bit of an outcast and feel a bit of an eccentric, and didn't quite feel like I was really the right fit for certain people that I used to know, and in certain situations where I was surrounded by people but still felt incredibly lonely. So this is true. You can have as many friends as you want, but I think ultimately, I think you either just are a social person or you're not. You know, I think you either like to be around people or you don't. And I don't particularly enjoy it that much, if I'm being honest. Like I don't hate people, but I don't. It's like I can try and, you know, I try to be funny. I try to get along with people as best as I can, but I mean. But often it's a case of, it's just when I'm in the mood, you know, if I'm in the mood to socialise, or I'm in the mood to talk to people, then I am, but when I'm not in, you know, sometimes I have down days where I'm just not feeling it, not particularly enjoying the interactions with people, the conversation's boring, you know, whatever, I'm just not feeling it that day for whatever reason, and that's that really. But yeah, as you get older, loneliness is definitely fact of life. You know, as people start to, you know, their health starts to decline, and people start to die away, and you know, your families get smaller and smaller over time. Your friendship groups get smaller and smaller, and just the fact that the more that you learn about life, I think, in many ways, the more, and certainly when you start learning about like space and just how rare life might be out there in space and in a galaxy. On, you know, it's mind-bogglingly. It's really quite sad, and fills you with real loneliness, and just the fact that, as we've discussed in this video, a lot of time you can't trust people, you don't know what people's motives are and what their agendas are, and sometimes you do genuinely feel very alone in this world, very, very alone, and I have felt alone a lot of my life actually, and I am alone. Like, I don't have any real friends anymore. I've moved on, they've moved on, and I lead a bit of a kind of unconventional life, I guess. So it's part of myself. I've got myself to blame in a way. So there's that. Okay, we're moving on to the last 20 now. I really hope my battery holds up for the rest of this video. At the time of making this video, that is. 30. Sometimes the ones you trust the most will hurt you the worst. Yeah, I touched upon that not a little while ago in the video. Betrayal can come from anybody, but I think it's people lying to you that you trusted, that you believed for so long, people that you really had respect for, and people that you really valued as valuable members of your family or your friendship groups that lie to you. That, to me, there's a whole other level of betrayal that really cuts deep and can really, I think something like that can really ruin someone. That can really ruin someone's light, that can really extinguish someone's fire in the mind, and because those are the kind of things that make you question your whole world, your whole reality, the whole system, the whole everything, because that is essentially everything. Your family is everything, unless it's a really shitty family, really bad one. But for the most part, for most people, their family is their rock, really. That's their source of life, and without it, I think most people wouldn't really get by without it in some way or other. Not that you need your family to hold your hand, as you get old, but it's nice to have it there. It's nice to have your family to talk to, but you know that your family, your parents have got secrets, the things they've never talked to you about, and they never will. They've got regrets, they've got guilt about different things. Some parents probably didn't even want you. You were just an accident. Sometimes they've got parents might have cheated. You might not have. For some people that their father isn't actually their real father. The mother that they thought was their real mother isn't their real mother, kind of thing. All sorts of really terrible secrets that people hold often throughout their entire lives, and you just got to be very, very, very selective with trust. Very, very careful. It can really destroy you. 31. This is the human's condition section now. You will never fully understand yourself. I think as you mature a little bit, as you gradually get up in age, then, and the more introspection you do, the more, I suppose really, I think with the more introverted you are, the more that you live in more in your head, you're not, you might seek validation, but it's not as much as extroverts. I would say probably, because with being an introvert, you generally like your own company. You don't mind being on your own, and you kind of sussing things out in your own head with yourself. You have more of a relationship with yourself than you do with other people. So, but even then, sometimes I don't really even know who I am. I don't even know what I want, and how I feel about myself, about life sometimes, and life can become like a kind of like a Rubik's cube or something. I'm trying to suss things out. I'm trying to work things out as I'm going along. But of course, we're all shaped by our biases and emotional baggage, our different levels of trauma, I guess. We're all shaped by our experiences, our memories, and that's it really. And sometimes it's only when you have distance from things that you can see things clearer and you have a deeper insight into yourself. But that it's usually a very long process of a very extremely long process of learning. And even at the end of your life, you might not entirely know everything about your life and everyone that's been a part of it. But that, in a way, that's a good thing because that makes life more interesting. Okay, next one, 32. You are replaceable in almost every aspect of life. Of course, yeah. You know, when it comes to work, especially, you know, unless you're like really super talented or like you've got genius level IQ or something, or you're somehow you're sort of almost supernaturally gifted at something, then whatever, that's different. But I say for the average person in work, relationships, friendships, in your job, really, yeah, you're not particularly that special, really. You're not that. You might not be as interesting or as funny or as deep as you might think you are. You know, you might not be as great as you think you are. You know, our egos can get the better of us sometimes. So, and especially when it comes to relationships, romantic relationships, we're absolutely replaceable. Because I think this is often the case with women. They're looking for the next best thing. You know, they're looking for the next trend to jump on, the next fashion. You know, the next best provider kind of thing. You know, they're looking for the best. When they get bored of that, or they're not getting some out of it, then they'll go looking for something elsewhere. But that I think men tend to be a bit more loyal though. I think men try and stick things out as long as they can, but men can just be as bad, but in different ways. 33. You notice I'm speeding up here again because I'm running out of battery and I've been rabbiting on here for too long now. Your mind is capable of betraying you. Sorry, just give me a moment. Why is it always when I'm making a video that she always has to reach out to me? It's just always the case. This is not a very professional video. Then again, none of my videos are very professional. So I'm sorry about this. Yeah, it's always something when I'm trying to make something. There's always something disturbing me. It's not my brother, it's my wife. Welcome to marriage. Okay, so the next one is, just as my battery is on 33%, number 33. Your mind is capable of betraying you. Yeah, I think that's true. You know, there's often times where I think about, you know, maybe I was wrong about that friend. You know, maybe I was wrong about that situation. Maybe I shouldn't have overreacted and jumped to conclusions and so forth. And you know, maybe I was wrong at times about different things. So, you know, your mind can betray you. I'm sorry about this. I'm just going to have to deal with my wife. Okay. Let me just get away from that. Just can't be left alone for more than 5 minutes. I'm saying you're better off being single, guys. Any guys out there watching this, you're better off being single, because otherwise you just get bombarded with always something anyway. Fucking annoying is what it is. It's like, why does it have to be now? You know I'm on a live, but this was a live, by the way, anybody watching this was a Facebook Live that was downloaded, as I've said, like 1 million times now. Downloaded as a video, obviously, and then uploaded to YouTube. Right, I'm actually going to get back on with this now. So yeah, your mind is capable of betraying you. Your mental health problems can lead you to think irrational thoughts, to illogical patterns of behaviour, and sort of obsessing over certain emotions and certain thoughts. So absolutely, your brain is definitely capable of betraying you, and actually can betray. Your whole body can betray you over enough time and given enough situations and circumstances. Even your eyes are deceiving. It's like your body's not the be all and end all. It's not. It's often actually quite limited. It's very limited when you think about the capabilities of other animals in nature. So can you trust your own mind sometimes? Nah. And you should always question it. Don't always just accept everything you feel and everything you believe as if it's the absolute truth, because it's not always. And you have to be hyper aware and hyper vigilant about that, because that your mind can lead you down some very dangerous dark alleyways that can lead you to some very destructive self-fulfilling prophecies and damaging your mentality overall and damaging your capabilities. Number 34, I think we're going to just about get through these, I hope. 34, your happiest memories will eventually fade. Well, some of them I already have, actually. Memories that I used to have from some school. I'm aware of some of the memories I used to have, but I can't really it's a weird thing to say that, but I can't really remember much about them. I have glimpses, brief grainy glimpses of things into my past and childhood, but I can't remember things quite as clearly as I used to, because of the effect of time and things that have happened since those years, those formative years. So the moments you cherish most will blur over time, sometimes even becoming inaccurate. Yeah, that's true. I think as time goes on, our memories do become. There's less clarity going on there. There's not. We can sort of remember things to a point, but the specifics of certain memories starts to die away. And often, I think we're often attracted to the emotions that are connected to memories rather than the actual reality of certain things. And nostalgia can be a bit of a. I think nostalgia can be a bit of a negative thing to have if you become obsessed with it. It can kind of ruin your optimism, your overall positivity if you focus on it too much. And actually, a lot of the time, our memories aren't an entirely accurate representation of those actual memories as well. So, there are things that people probably know about certain memories that we have that would blow our memories out of the water. That would be like, I was wrong then. So you have to be very careful about your memory. It's like, yes, of course, there are certain things in my mind about my childhood and my teenage years and so on that are still quite clear. But things from like when I was say 6, 7, 8, I don't quite have as much clarity over that stuff anymore as I used to, because I don't think about it as much as I used to. So I guess I'm not kind of feeding into that, not keeping that memory alive, I guess. And I guess that's partly why they're fading as time goes on. And obviously new stuff is coming in all the time, new memories, and so I guess that's a part of it. If you see me looking over to the corner there, I'm looking at the battery. So I have to keep saying all of these things, but so we're coming towards the end of this now, thankfully. 35, your perception of reality is limited and flawed. Yeah, of course it is, because you only know what you know. You've only experienced what you've experienced. You're only as knowledgeable as what you've learned and what you've been educated in, what you've picked up. You're only as wise as much as you've experienced and whatever insights into those experiences and memories and so on. But of course, it's also the society you've grown up with, the language that you speak, that plays into it, your culture, your family, your character, your personality probably plays a big role in it as well. Your mental health, of course. But also, we have to also accept that the brain is limited. It is a limited machine. We don't have all the answers to everything. Even the greatest genius minds out there today, and those that have ever lived, they didn't know everything either. And we probably might not ever truly know everything there is to know. Probably not. I can't see it not within this century. Maybe within the next 500 to 1,000 years, we might finally have more or less most of the answers to everything, I'd imagine. But there may very well be limitations. There may very well be things that the mind just can't. It just cannot comprehend. It just can't. It's beyond the human mind. Hence why we're so focused on AI, for example. Like focus on quantum computing and that kind of thing, because we know the limitations of the human mind. There are things that only the intelligence of super evolved AI and quantum computing capabilities will be able to give insights into, whether we find the ultimate truths of like the universe, for example, and if there's anything beyond the universe, and maybe higher levels of some superior, like philosophical higher powers or some other levels of like physics of some sort. I don't know, but maybe there is. Maybe there's like the universe is like inside of something else, inside of something else, inside of something else. There may very well be unlimited layers to this. Who knows exactly what the true realities of that kind of thing is, and also the human mind. The true nature of life itself. The answers to these really important big questions out there. We might not ever truly have an absolute true answer to these things. 36, your dreams and ambitions will change and not always for the better. Yeah, I think as you get older you realise what's more important to you, and so you start to let things go, you start to let people that you once thought a lot more highly of, you let them go, you learn that there are more important things to you as time goes on, and your priorities change, and as a result, the things that you once would have done anything for, people you would have done anything for, you're not interested anymore. You're like, I don't want that anymore. I just don't. For whatever reason, not because you're bad. You're a carefree or malicious person, but you just change. You just certain things. You just don't want that anymore. Your body's changed, your mentality's changed, life has changed you, whether you like it or not. Your experiences have shaped you, and they've driven you to somebody into a different part of yourself, a different version of yourself. And at a certain point, you do want to do different things. You just want change. You don't want to keep doing the same thing time and time again. That's why I don't mix. I used to mix quite a lot. I don't do as much of it these days as I used to, because I'm not inspired that much anymore by it, and I only do now what in that regard when I want to do it. So I only really do now what I want to do. Whether we should pursue things even harder when that happens is a different. I don't know. It depends how much value you place on it. Is it worth the effort? When you're younger, when you're in your 20s, like anything's open to you. But I thought I heard somebody coughing or something. Must be going mad. yeah, of course, you know, you can't expect people to stay the same, exactly the same, for the entirety of their lives. It's not a realistic expectation. People change, and sometimes they don't tell you about it. They don't talk about it, and sometimes people will make a decision in a life, and you think, wow, that seems a bit abrupt, but actually it's not. People have been wanting that change for a very long time, they just didn't tell you about it because they were worried about what you might think, what you might say. Maybe they try and talk you out of it. You see, human interactions are complicated. You see, that's why a lot of people don't tell everybody what they're feeling, what they're thinking, because you know there can be impacts and side effects of those kind of things. But certainly, you know, you will experience some kind of loss of interest, some loss of aspiration, some loss of ambition as you get older in certain ways, and you'll replace them with other things. 37. I think we're on 37. Let me see. I'm kind of like thinking about whether I should add anything more to the other ones when I'm looking at the next one. So. Sorry if they're itching as well, my hair's so itchy. Okay, 37. Most of your childhood joys will never feel the same again. You know what, I not that long ago I was like listening back to some music that I used to quite enjoy in the Spyro games I used to play in my early teens, and they don't quite feel the same to me as much as they used to. You know, it's like it's still good like ambient music, but it doesn't. It's not as good anymore. And certainly watching the games and probably playing them wouldn't be, because you're not that person anymore. You're not that kid anymore. You're an adult. I mean, you are and you aren't. You know, it's like you've taken on responsibilities. You've got all that baggage behind you. You know, you're carrying all that adult shit. You know, like when you were a kid, you've only got that stuff to worry about. When you get older, you realise that all that stuff was kind of, you know, that's all going well when you were a kid, and you've got nothing really to worry about for the most part. It's like life's great, life's wonderful. It's a joy, isn't it? Apart from you doing your homework or when the day's dragging on in school or some kids bullying you or something. But for the most part, you know, life's pretty good when you were a kid, and you know, playing with your friends and you know, watching your favourite videos or cartoons and you know, eating your favourite snacks and whatever. I just think as you get older that you long for it, but you know that you can't have it. You know that it's not good for you, and that you kind of have to separate yourself at a certain point. You have to let go of phases of your life. You have to let go of parts of who you used to be to move on. You know, you can't live in the past. You know, it's like it's good to revisit the past, but once you start hyper focusing on it and longing to go back, that's when you start to find yourself getting deeply kind of bitter, resentful, you know, and falling into a state of depression. So you have to be so careful about longing for your child. There's nothing wrong in keeping a part of yourself, a kid within yourself somewhere, but to get too bogged down in that nostalgic like depression kind of thing is no good for anybody, let alone yourself. 38, people will judge you more for your failures than your efforts. It depends. I mean, it depends who. Sometimes your friends and family might support you, but then some friends and family might not. They might actually be jealous. They might be bitter about it. You know, it's like, how dare you go and achieve and do more and see more and be more than we could be, or you know, or show up our, you know, reveal our insecurities and all that kind of shit. You know, I've seen it myself. I've done it a little bit. You know, being that kind of person as well. So, you know, I've lived a little bit. You know, I'm almost 35 years old. You know, obviously I've lived a little bit now, and you know, I've realised that, you know, I'm not without my flaws, and you know, I've been on sometimes in many ways. I've been in different situations in life where I've been on both sides. You know, I've been that person, but I've also been the other person as well. So I've got that duality of experience. You know, that perspective. Right. So yeah, but sometimes some people can be extremely toxic and really, really unpleasant, and they love nothing more than watching you suffer, watching more than you fail, and because they failed, or they're just utterly envious of you for some reason or other, even though you're not trying to make them envious or jealous. I just think some people are just, it's just like, it's just, I always say it, but like, it's what my ex used to say, crabs in a bucket mentality, you know. It's, how dare you, I'm going to drag you down because you're getting higher than me, you're doing more than me, you know, that kind of thing. And I've also thought that as well about certain people, but I think people have probably had those kind of thoughts and feelings about me as well, so it's a difficult place to be in when you've been on both sides of something, you know. It's different. You don't know quite what to think about it all. Okay, finally, we're almost at the end here. Whew, it's been a long video, and that's why this is the end of the series, because they're very long videos, and it's difficult to. I don't know what I'm going to say, so it's, you know, I hope I'm saying something that's of value, something useful, and I hope that you've took something from at least one of the videos, parts of them, and that was my intention behind it. I wanted to share my own genuine, actual, raw thoughts on all of these things, but I also wanted people to comment on them, if they have the time to watch at least. And I don't expect them to watch the entirety of the videos, but if some people watch just a little bit of it, I would really appreciate that, and you know, let me know what you thought in the comments. So there we go. Okay, so we're on to 39. You will outlive some of the people you love. Well, that goes without saying, you know. I mean, I already have. You know, my grandmother's passed away in 2008. My grandfather passed away, I think it was in 2015. Sorry, I was going to say 2016, 2015. One of my old, somebody I used to really respect and know passed away in 2009. It was an officer at Boys Brigade, 17th Whole Boys Brigade, Philip Cookson, or Cookies we used to call him. Obviously pets have died, passed away when I was younger. When I was a kid, a teenager, I used to have cats. God rest their souls, Charlie, Snoopy. Ben, of course. Who else? You know, Joe Dinsdale, Amy Silby. Not that I loved them, but you know, I kind of liked them in some way, at school at least. Obviously, my uncle Charlie passed away not that long ago. My uncle Stephen passed away not that long ago, and my aunt Sonia passed away about a decade ago now, I think it was. So you know, I've known people that I cared about, or at least had some, you know, positive things to say about. And of course, as time goes on, I'll certainly, I would imagine, if I live long enough, then obviously I'm going to outlive my parents, aren't I? Jeez, how depressing is that? You know, I think about it a lot though these days. I really do, because I know it's coming. I know it's gonna any day now. You know, I'm gonna get a call. I'm gonna get a message. I know it's coming. So you know, loss is just a natural part of life. You're gonna have to deal with it when it comes, and it is coming. Believe me, in some form or other, whatever it might be. And there's no getting around it. You know, you can't. It's just, you're going to have to deal with those stages of grief when it hits, and it might not always hit you immediately either. You know, there are times where I feel like I haven't really fully grieved people's passings, and I don't. It's hard. It's hard to live without certain people in my life sometimes. I really wish they were here. I wish I could talk to them. I wish I could share a meal with them. As a man, as an adult, and I would have liked to have, I would have liked to have had them to have been there. To have seen me. I miss those people a lot. I really do. My family members. Pets from time to time, of course. But what can you do about it? You can only remember them, can't you? And what can you do? Can't bring them back. So that's that, isn't it? That's the brutal pill of life, isn't it? That death is awaiting all of us. It's just a matter of when, where, and how. 40. No one is truly self-made. Luck plays a bigger role than most admit. Yeah, I would say that a lot of the time, people that these sort of self-made millionaires, they're often hiding something. There's often more to the story. These rags to rich type, motivational speakers and billionaire types and whatever. It's not just a case of them working hard and saving money and all this. Like, yes, they made some smart decisions. There's no doubt about that. But they also had people supporting them as well. They also, they got in with the right people at the right time. They invested at the right time. They probably had some insider info on certain things, or often some things. There's often a trail of baggage and shady decisions and business deals going on somewhere along the line. Probably someone's been screwed over. Probably a handful of people have been fucked over somewhere financially, and. But they've probably been paid off, so nobody really ever gets to truly know about it. And these people then take centre stage and claim that anyone can be this, anyone can do this. All you have to do is change your mind, and use this type of language. It's like, but really they're just denying the realities of life for the vast majority of people, and that is that if you're willing to play the game and be an absolutely morally bankrupt shitbag, then yeah, you can reach the top. But not everyone's like that. Not everybody wants to be like that, and all the time it comes down. It really, I think probably the main factors in people becoming truly wealthy and self-made types. It's down to your social class, your upbringing. It's down to where you were educated as a kid, your influences, your parents, kind of putting you out there and exposing you to certain things at an early age, whether it's kind of business tactics, it's money, it's going to the right universities, it's having the right IQ really, having a certain level of intelligence, being at the right place at the right time, as I mentioned before, and knowing the right people at the right times. Sometimes it's just purely luck, it's chance, but a lot of it's down to, I think, manipulation of people and of situations, and like I've said quite a few times now, knowing how to work out the chessboard very, very early on, and knowing how to use people for a certain period of time, and knowing how to get rid of people and replace them with people that are better, or just it's just a game. It's a game to these types of people a lot of the time, and they're some of the most morally bankrupt, just purely ego-driven, money-driven narcissists on the entire planet. And actually, a lot of these people are some of the most unpleasant, selfish, greedy, just pure sociopathic kind of like just capitalist types on the planet. You know, they'll say anything, they'll do anything to make money and screw over people over in the process and fight off any competition by any corrupt means possible. Okay, right. The last section here, and I'm going to try and get through this within, say, the next sort of 10 to 15 minutes, I hope, because I'm guessing that's probably right. I'm guessing we're about 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes left maybe on the iPad before it shuts off and this whole video's, this whole thing can't be used. That'd be great. So at 41, the more you know about the world, the more disillusioned you get. Yeah, that's what I found myself becoming in my 30s. I've started to become more and more dissatisfied with life, with the system, capitalism, politics, human nature, relationships, sex even, honestly, and just more and more disillusioned with the sheer levels of inequality in this world: corruption, suffering, cruelty, unethical practices, accepted immoral norms, blah blah blah. You know, I think the less you know in this world, sometimes the better it is. You know, sometimes it's better to kind of be naive. I think. 42. Most historical heroes were deeply flawed, even terrible people. I think they were certainly human beings with very complex lives, just like we are today, and lived in a time where more things were less, you know, things that we deem now to be moral or unacceptable were more acceptable and deemed to be normal back in those times. So we have to be careful with our frame of reference, you know, using today's world as an example of what's moral, what's right, and, you know, judging the past based on how we live our lives today and what we think and our attitudes and beliefs and biases and all the rest of it. So we have to be very careful there. But yeah, some of those people, certainly some artists and musicians, composers, you know, certainly weren't as probably as nice as we would like to think, but they contribute greatly to the arts. You know, whatever famous scientists, mathematicians, philosophers, you know, great thinkers of the past, political commentators, etc., 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 great engineers, and so forth. Yeah, of course, not all of them were great, nice people. Actually, some of them were terrible people. You know, look at one example might be like of a well-known composer, Wagner. Wagner, he was a fascist. He hated the Jews, and I think even like, well, I remember reading once in a book that it was quoted as saying like, all the Jewish people in the local community should be put in the church and it should be burnt down. You know, it's like, okay. But yeah, Wagner's, you know, deemed to be one of the greatest operatic composers ever, if not one of the greatest composers that there's ever been. You know, another one might be Bach, J.S. Bach. He was an incredibly strict, very super disciplined individual. Some people, I'm sure, probably thought it was quite a nasty individual, overly strict. You know, but you know, so I don't know. You know, some people, even Debussy was sometimes deemed not to be a very pleasant individual. Just to name a few musicians, but I'm sure some famous artists probably weren't all that great either. You know, Picasso, like Michelangelo, probably wasn't all. You know, we have this very glossy, rainbow tinted view of the past and people in the past, and especially when it comes to great minds and artists and so forth. We have to remember that they were human beings as well, and were incredibly flawed and eaten up by the problems of their times, and we must remember that. Okay, last few now. 43. War will never end. Humanity thrives on conflict. I won't say humanity thrives on conflict, but certainly people in positions of power, of political power, and those that are fueling the militaries around the world. And of course, you know, it's a massive industry. You know, the arms industry is you know, multi-million dollars, $1 billion probably in wealth. So of course, you know, there are certain individuals who want to maintain those industries, and the pharmaceutical industry is another one, the oil industry is another one. You know, these people are often very incredibly ruthless people, and yeah, we just have to be very careful, mindful of that. Sorry, I'm just having a bit of a dizzy spell here because I've been staring at this screen for too long. It's a bit too bright probably as well. So I'm just sorry. At least it's not an earthquake today. Next time maybe, we'll see. So yeah, you know, of course, nobody really wants to, no peace-loving, or peace-wanting individual wants to see warfare continue, but it will do. It will happen, and you know, and as time goes on with resource depletion and all the rest of it, like I've talked about, I don't want to keep banging on about the same things over and over and over and over again. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm sure that war will continue on in some capacity or other for the foreseeable future, especially when it comes to access to oil and natural gas and water and all that kind of thing. You know, mining and all the rest of it. Okay, 44 most charities about image. I've talked about charities before. I don't believe that a lot of bigger charities are really being completely open and honest about what their intentions are and about just how much people are profiting from those charities. There's a lot more going on than meets the eye, and sometimes they're often kind of scams and the kind of funneling money through charities and for other reasons, and whether it's for tax purposes or you know, there's money laundering stuff kind of going on. There's all sorts of stuff. You just can't trust all charities, and I very, very rarely ever give money to charity. 45, the internet has made us more connected, but lonely than ever. Yeah, I think social media has certainly done that. You know, I'm on a platform right now, and well, this is going to be on a platform that's got millions of users, and yet, you know, hardly ever do anybody ever comment on my video. Not that I expect them to, but it would be nice, you know. It's kind of, you know, there's a part of me that wants people to say something, I guess. But you know, if not, then people don't. But it's not the end of the world. But you know, of course, there's an element that you want to kind of communicate with people to some extent. But I think that's what's happened is since COVID, I think we've becoming more and more isolated. We're becoming more and more ingrained with technology, and before we know it, AI will have taken over, robotics will have taken over, automation will have taken over the vast majority of things within say 10, 20 years, I reckon. And we'll just become more and more kind of obsolete, I suppose, in a way, as a species. For I'd say like 90% of the population of the world will become obsolete. There'll be no real role for them. So what they're going to do at that point, I don't know. But yeah, social media is really anything but social. You know, there's no real, unless you're talking to your friends and family on it. Like it's Reddit. I'd say Reddit's a bit of a different kind of thing. It's like there's communities there, but even then, it's like it's not the same thing as really having real communication with people, is it? So I don't know. I think what's happening is I'm getting dizzy because I'm looking between two screens here, and the difference in the light, I'm guessing, is probably having an effect on my eyes, but also it's kind of a bit dark in this room. So anyway, we're finally onto the last few, the last 5 here. So I'm sorry it's been an excessively long video, this, but it is the final of this, and I won't be doing any of these again probably for quite some time, if ever. But if I do again, I won't be doing like a kind of series. It'll just be the odd video every now and again, because I think I've done quite enough of this stuff already, and I don't want to bore you. You know, I want to be able to bring something to each video and sort of make it sort of slightly different video, sort of, sort of slightly different in a way, I guess. So I hope you've enjoyed the series. If you've watched all of them, watched part, I doubt you probably have watched all of them, but if you've watched some of the bits of the videos, then that's great. Please let me know what you thought. If you disagree with me on anything, please let me know in the comments, and I will get back to you when I can. If anybody watches this stuff, I doubt it, probably no one will, but if you do, I'm really thankful for you, and yeah, I appreciate that you were willing to give me a few seconds out of your time to, just a few minutes, or an hour, let's say, out of your time to listen to this random nobody on YouTube. So 46, propaganda controls more of your thoughts than you realise. Yeah, there's a lot of conditional social engineering going on in society in so many different ways, and that's a really vastly complex area. But you can think about even the education system, the legal system. There's so much propaganda, but certainly politics. There's never been so much propaganda, I don't think, these days, and this whole woke ideology thing running riot over everything, pushing a communist-based kind of political ideology on everything and everyone, any opportunity they can get, and trying to ruin and demolish anything that used to actually make a country what it was. I think we're heading in some very, very, very dangerous and dark territory now, in my opinion, in that regard. 47, the education system is designed to create obedient workers, not thinkers. I think at schools, yeah, I would say. And in terms of university, that seems to become more apparent over the last, say, 10 years, with the whole, again, the woke ideology thing creeping into every aspect of society. People are getting shut down, people are getting censored all the time. But I'd say sort of generally overall, I'd say yeah, it's more about knowledge rather than getting you to think critically about things, to analyse things, unless you go to a decent university that hasn't been infiltrated with this whole commie bullshit. Okay, last three. 48, most crimes go unpunished, especially those committed by the powerful. Kind of already talked about that already, but yeah, I think there's probably a lot of truth to that actually. I would say that yeah, it's quite true. Yeah, so that's that. 49, science can solve many problems, but people often reject it out of fear. Yeah, well, especially people that are more kind of dogmatic in their religious views, or have some kind of dogmatic political views or philosophical views or whatever, or kind of addicted to drugs or something like that, then yeah, you tend to find that some people are quite stubbornly ignorant and really just driven by fear rather than rational, logical thought. Finally, number 50, no matter how advanced we become, we are just still animals fighting for survival. Well, yes, that is true, but also we're building on technology all the time. We're advancing civilization in certain ways all the time. Scientific knowledge, medical knowledge is advancing all the time. You know, our knowledge about space, the universe is advancing at an incredible speed. So yes, we certainly are different to animals in that regard. But yeah, essentially we're just the same as we've been for hundreds of thousands of years probably, in that those basic, very basic, primitive instincts like greed, fear, selfishness, self-preservation, kind of a need to dominate others, I guess, in some capacity for survival, fight or flight, those kind of things. They're very, very simple but massively important parts of our very primitive, primal core of our brain that will, at least until genetic engineering, neurosurgery, neuroscience can deal with those kind of things, and things change at that point. So, but we will always kind of essentially be the top dogs on this planet in terms of our sheer curiosity, creativity and intelligence. So there we go, there's 50 of those very interesting areas that I'm sure a lot of people have got a lot to say about, and I would love to know your thoughts in the chat, in the comment section. Sorry. Those were 50 dark truths about life, nature, humanity, and I hope that you've enjoyed some of what I've said. If not in this video, then in others. And I thank you very much for giving me the time out of your day to listen to me go on and on and on and on. So I'm very conscious of that. So thank you very much, and I will see you again at some point and in another video in the coming weeks. So thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you again very soon. Thank you. Bye bye.